Hi, everybody. We are so excited that this is Wednesday evening. Go ahead and grab whatever you need to get comfortable and cozy this evening, and we will be back in about 30 seconds. All right. Hi, everybody. I'm so excited to be able to hang out with my colleague, Michele. Michele, how are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm good. I am so tired. I'm so tired.
You made it almost through Wednesday, so there's 2 left to the weekend after this.
Yes, that's right. And thank goodness. I'm like, I need a day to just like sleep, just like be, what is it, horizontal, be horizontal for like a whole day.
Just a good binge watch day.
Yes. I'm like craving one of those days. So folks, if you are watching, go ahead and say hello in the comments. Let us know if you're also in need of one of these days, because I feel like all of us just need like a full day to not do anything, a full day to like disassociate. Is that the right word, right? Like disassociate and kind of detach and unplug from the world. And just like, I would love to be in a room by myself for 24 hours.
That sounds good, actually.
Yes. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, it's because we made it right through September. It's like officially October, and October gets busy though.
It sure does.
Take a breath and then keep running.
Yes. And Tracy is joining us. Hey, Tracy. And Tracy and I were excited. We had a wonderful event today with the Ames Network. So we were in Mundelein today with a fabulous group of middle school educators talking about all things multilingual learners. We talked about newcomers today too, which was nice because that kind of leads us into tonight's topic. But before I introduce tonight's topic, for friends who are watching, I've got to plug this because I don't want anyone missing out. So the Multilingual Illinois Conference is December 10th through 13th in Tinley Park this year. So it's a new location. But start that email now to your director, curriculum person, principal, whoever you need to secure your funding. Type out that email right now, like, oh, hey, I don't want to miss it this year. It's going to be fabulous. New location, new energy, new vibes, all of that. Also want to tell everybody about our upcoming family and BPAC sessions. All of that information is on our website. Those are free. Those are in English and Spanish. You could have a BPAC watch party. They're fantastic. And those are run by our colleague at Alicia. Those are wonderful. And be sure you are continuing to follow us on social media because we do have other things happening in the future that we would love for you to know about and be a part of for sure. But all that to say, tonight's topic, kind of continuing on this newcomer theme that we've been having for the last few weeks now. Tonight's topic is why translation alone isn't always effective. So much to say about this, right? Where do we even start, Michele?
I could start with a story. A story popped into my mind of something that recently happened. I might have told it on another. I lose track of who I'm telling the stories to. I'm like one of those people now that tells story multiple times. Like too old or something. Anyway, but I was in a district a while ago, last school year, and a teacher had a newcomer level, like a level 1 proficiency beginning English speaker, come into her classroom mid-year, and she was doing loads of work. So kudos to her. I'm always so impressed by teachers that jump into action, and she just wanted to do right by him. So she was doing tons of work. On the day that I visited her classroom, the students were going to be doing a sort. They were sorting different like pieces of a story into whether they were the climax of the story or the conclusion, all of those like plot elements. And so they all got envelopes with little pieces inside. And the newcomer, they were, I should say, they were working in groups, right? So the student that is classified as newcomer, she gave him his own envelope. Okay. And there were not any other students in the classroom that spoke the same language as this child, so that's tricky too. Yeah. But so he got his own envelope, and then she said to me, like, kind of sidebarring, like, I made him his own sword so he can read what to do, and he was pulling out all these little pieces, you know, of a story of some sort. It was like the translated version. He had used Google Translate to translate these different stems into Thai, or was it Vietnamese? I don't remember exactly, and he was pulling out all these stems and just kind of in shock. Like he still wasn't sure exactly what to do with them. And the one thing that I think I kind of took away in that moment was, number one, that was a lot of work. She made a whole separate sort for what amounted to what the rest of the students probably did in like 10 to 15 minutes. Okay. So imagine if you multiplied that by the whole day, right? Trying to make sure that you had translated materials for this child the whole day. And she had cut his separately and, you know, made sure that she was ready. But he kind of just stared at the pieces. And I think a couple of things. Number one, all of the kids were already getting into groups. So I think he was like, what am I supposed to am I supposed to be in a group? Am I supposed to do this myself? Do I bring these pieces over? What do I do? And then also, we can't really guarantee that he's able to read the Google translated versions of these things at the middle. You know, we don't know that even though the passage that she had translated was at the middle school level in English, we don't know whether the Google translation amounts to something readable for middle schoolers, or if he had that level of literacy in his previous schooling. We don't know. Those were unknowns. So a lot of work and effort and prep went into that moment when I feel like probably just by like moving into a group and watching what they were doing, a lot more would be gained. More about how sorts work and what the process is. Yeah. The students could have been asked to like draw a little image for why they put things on their poster when they started. Anything else, but he was kind of left isolated instead. And she was like, yeah, I'm translating all the time and I don't know, it's not really working out. And the thing that I took away too from it was that, and that's a lot of work. That's a whole lot of work. And I think it's easy to fall into translation like temptation. Temptation. And kind of rest in this comfort that you're providing access to everything by doing full translation of everything. I'm not sure that that's true, A, that you would be really providing access to everything, and B, I think you're excluding some students from the engagement of the activities, from the engagement with their peers, from the engagement with you, the teacher.
Yes. I love that you said that, Michele, because it's very easy to fall into that. It's not a trap. I don't want to call it a trap, but that temptation, because it's 2024. We have all these devices. We have all these tools. There's pens, there's earbuds, there's extensions on the computer, there's AI, there's all of these different translation resources at our fingertips. So it feels real simple to be like, I'll just click these two buttons here and then I'm all set. So it becomes like, oh, I'll just do this as a quick fix, and like that will serve the need.
Yeah.
But we have to be so mindful of like setting up some parameters and some systems, and also helping us to remember, like, number one, what is the purpose? If we're trying to leverage, right, that heritage language, how can we do so that it is effective? it's making a difference for the student, right, for their learning. But number two, it's not going to take up, all of this prep time, because we might have several newcomers across multiple languages, and lots of other kids with lots of different needs, and our to-do lists are always a mile long too. But that false sense of a scaffold, I think, is the biggest one for me. Like, I think that's like we want to leverage the heritage language, but not settle in like, all right, translation's done, right? Like, I'm all set now, and it's like, well, hold up, partner, you're not all set now. All right, like there's so much more that we need to continue.
And also, imagine if we just keep going in that way. Like, when does that stop? If we keep doing it, even if, let's say, the child really does have a really solid, rock solid foundation and can read the translated materials or utilize the translated materials. Let's just say, for argument's sake, that could happen. If we keep going down that road of everything being translated, we're really missing a critical moment there where we move into the target language too. Yes. So I kind of like to think of translation tools being best used as a partial support and scaffold. So, like, let's say, for example, it's a student-driven brainstorming activity. Mm-hmm. Maybe we can translate the directions or the prompts so that they can understand what they are to be generating ideas for or coming up with if it's a writing activity. Then the student could be encouraged to use their home language for their brainstorming, or if they do have buddies in the classroom, like, use your home language to chat with each other about this topic or gather your thinking, write your outline or your ideas. But then maybe we help, like, take one or two of those ideas and say, okay, we're gonna try to move these into the new language. So let me use a translation tool if it's possible to read and to try to understand what you have. Like, let me be the one to try to use the translation tool to understand what's here. And then from there, or even if not, how do we then move into, like, let's get one idea into the new language or a few words labeled here. Circle your important words. Could I translate just that direction? And then see if we can get those those translated into the new language for learning purposes. So I always feel like when it's ideation or idea generation or talk, that's great to have the student utilize their home language. But then there has to be a moment when we move into the target language as well. And if both languages are the target, then we teach kids how to make decisions. Like, why are we doing it in both languages? When are we doing it in one or the other? And do you have the decision, or are we all going to try one way or another right now? So I don't know. I have lots of thoughts about this topic.
Yes.
Giving access to some of the content while then providing other materials at a lower linguistic demand level in English, I feel strikes a better balance than the temptation to just go ahead and translate everything. Oh, let them use a translator tool on their phone all day and just muddle through.
Yeah. When I talk about this, I feel like I've had more conversations with educators who are middle school and junior high and secondary, like, especially around this idea, because, right, like, I think it's for a few different reasons. Number one is, like, that ease part. Like, I have all these different preps I have to, have content ready for students. So I think it is real easy to just click a button and have that translation there. And also, if I am feeling not equipped to instruct in a way that is going to help my student learn the content and learn the languaging of the content, if I feel equipped, this is a very easy, quick, like, fallback, I think, for teachers. But I always say, like, if we could establish, I always say, like, 3 prongs here. So number one, it's strategic. The second is the translation, whatever it might be. And it might actually be interpretation too. It just depends on the moment. And then the and. So the strategic is kind of what you were alluding to, Michele, is like what part of like, if I have a 42-minute block of time, of those 42 minutes, where would it make the most sense for me to leverage the heritage language? Because it might not be I'm translating the whole document or the whole slide deck, right? It might just be like a quick little boop here and there. It might be a few quick cognates in our vocabulary. It might be a few things, right? So all those 42 minutes, where and when am I going to leverage heritage language? So that's the strategic part. The translation is like, let's list out all of the materials, tools, resources we have to do that translation. And then the third part is the and, which is like, how else are you going to layer that support? Are you going to be embedding, graphic support? And are you going to be leveraging like synonyms within this text or this activity, whatever it might be? You want to apply that and to the equation.
Yeah, and I also like to think about this as like not like a full translation. I don't need to do that because I'm the classroom teacher and I don't know what to do, so I lean on translation. I like to think about then maybe that translation part comes either in one of your whole group, mini lessons, or on the student's page using sticky notes. Where does your translation come into play should be a really meaningful decision.
Yes.
Purposefully done. I like to think about partial translations frequently. So let's say I'm doing an anchor chart with all the students, and I'm tracking some of the ideas that we want to save, hang up, and use in our own work later. Then maybe it makes sense to put some sticky notes along the outside points with keywords translated. Or I often like to think about directions being translated or even just partially translated, like the parts that are tricky. Draw a conclusion. Maybe we want to write the word in English, think of a conclusion, and then we also want to translate that direction so that we have like multiple entry points or options there. Yes. Have you been using any great tools?
So I'll say this because I was just in a conversation today about this. Because they're like, Carly, what should we order? And I'm like, well, hold up. We don't have to order more stuff. Because there's a lot of great free tools that are out there that we can use. One thing that people will often share is that they use a lot of Google Translate. And I can't hate on Google Translate because I know I have used it myself for a number of years. But I have started to switch because I think I have found better success using AI translators. Like I never know how to say this, Michele. Is it DeepL or DeepL? I
never know either. You know how I am with those stuff.
I'm like, but I prefer AI translators over Google Translate for a few reasons. I think it's slightly more sophisticated than a Google Translate, but also like it's still imperfect, right? It's still not always going to nail it. But from a few different perspectives. Number one is if the language has multiple dialects, the AI tool has still not become sophisticated enough to identify one dialect and stick with it all the way through and then produce or express something in that one. So it's kind of like it takes all the dialects and mixes it up and then spits it out. And so a kid might get this printout and you're like, I did it. I did the translation for you. I made it accessible. And now the kid's looking at it like, what is this? Like, what does this even say? So there's that piece. And then the other kind of tricky part with some of these tools is like the English language has so many words with multiple meanings. Like can and bass or base, right? Depending on the
Right.
context, all that. So if I'm putting in like a word list for Google Translate and I'm just boop, 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 Google's going to pick one on my behalf. They're going to pick a definition. Oh, she means can like a can of soup. And I'm like, no, I meant like I can do it. And then it's just like, here you go. And so that's like, it's not really the scaffold we were hoping for.
Right.
So if we do use a word-to-word translator, I think sometimes those do have a good time and space, right? Depends on what we're doing. If we're trying to design like a tool, like a multilingual word wall or a multilingual word like entry for an interactive notebook, something like that. I think that could be cool, but also enhance it with like a column for a quick visual, quick graphic, either that we find together or that we design together, whatever it might be. And then also add in synonym translations, like have a synonym group translated. So if there's like 5 words and like one of them really did not translate in Mongolian and the student is like, oh, these 4 mean the same thing, I bet Mrs. Spina, I bet this is one of those words that got lost in translation.
That little list, I love that too. And I actually really like that as a scaffold to help support the English though. Just like draw a conclusion. You didn't really mean sketch the conclusion.
Yeah.
Unless you did, but probably you meant like think of it, right?
Yes.
Think of, and you didn't mean conclusion like think of the ending, right? So
yes.
Again, thinking about having like those little synonym lists or a little box with synonyms and then including some translations there, I find that to be very useful.
Yes.
No, actually, now that you mentioned AI, I've been playing around with Gemini a lot.
Yes.
And with Google's Gemini, I don't even know if you're supposed to say Google's Gemini. Like, is that the way you even say it? But anyway, I've been playing around a lot. And because I like to think about engineered text as a better approach for students who are ready than just moving into like a very simplified text right away. So engineered is like you're bolding words, you're adding some visuals, you might add some more white space to the page, adding synonyms in parentheses or in a little sidebar list, adding teacher commentary or conclusions that you're drawing to the side. And anyway, I've been playing around with Gemini, and if you prompt in the prompt box this AI to say like, I don't know, let's say explain photosynthesis with readability at the 3rd grade level, let's say something like that, period, then you can say include translation of challenging vocabulary in parentheses in the response. And it will do that for you. Or you can say include a list of synonyms for challenging verbs in the response and in parentheses or however you want it. If you play around with the prompts, I have had a lot of success. Of course, I've only checked it in Spanish. I have not tried that using any of my other link assets, but in Spanish, it works fairly well. I just did one to like explain how a circuit works, and then a little passage explained it and captured all of the key verbs and vocabulary in parentheses. And then I could decide what do I want to leave, what do I want to change. It actually helped me notice right away cognates, like for battery or whatever was the cognate. And I could find those really right away. It was lovely. So I love that idea of a partial translation so that you're giving some bit of home language as a scaffold. So I can get the gist of what I'm looking at, but we don't want to do that, number one, all the time. And we don't want to do it for the whole entire passage, just assuming that the child can read at that level of the translation.
Yes, yes. And I'm glad you mentioned that too, because I think that's another big piece of this is because it's so easy for us to click a few buttons and have this text regenerated into this language. I always say, like, if we're thinking back to the purpose, like what is the purpose of and leveraging the heritage language right now? Is it to provide, right, an entrance ramp to what's happening? Probably, right? That's probably the intention. If I'm trying to translate like a whole article or a whole passage or the whole slide deck. But I always caution folks that if we do that, because like you said earlier, we don't have a way to assess a student's heritage language literacy skills. Like we don't know. Like some of us, sometimes we might have an idea, but we truly don't have like a measure, right? So if I'm teaching 7th grade science and I've got my curricular resource right here and I want to plug it in to get a translation, I tell folks, don't translate the 7th grade version. Translate a 3rd grade version of this content, like of the text. Like level that text first and then provide it to the student, because they don't need a direct play-by-play of everything that's happening in the text. They need the gist. And again, if that's the purpose, we're trying to provide that entrance ramp. We provide the gist as the translation, and then we go ahead and add in those layers of like, how else am I going to scaffold the content, like whatever it is we're learning, in a way that will make sense. So I think that's like one quick tip that can make a big impact, right? And then really be more meaningful.
And then I always think too, if we are going to do a translation or a partial translation, how are we using that multiple times? So like if I went ahead and translated, like in parentheses, I had some translations of key verbs for how to put together a circuit and some of the key vocabulary, electricity, energy, battery, wires, these words. It's not because I'm assuming the child goes, oh, wires, circuit, I know what this whole thing is. No, they're still learning it like any other student would be, but it gives us an opportunity to go, okay, so I've given this passage of text to everybody. I have some idea now myself as a teacher as to like what these words are in the child's home language or heritage language. And so then when it comes to the task at hand, building the circuit and drawing a picture of your diagram, I can have all of the students in the classroom, like, let's go back to the passage, make sure we're labeling the circuit diagram that we made, and that we're ready to share two things, 2 ahas or something like that about 2 key ideas for how a circuit works. So now I can ask everyone, including the student who had those translations, to use the passage, and given those partial translations, the student has choice and options, right? Do it in English if you feel comfortable, or do it in both of your languages. There's no reason you can't label and learn the new academic words in both languages as we go. So I think just being mindful about, we're not just going to do blanket translation and not use it strategically, as you mentioned. That was the key word.
Yes, absolutely. My dog is going to say hello to everybody this evening because he is
hi. I do baby dog to dogs. So
this is my Honu. He's like the light of my life. He just got groomed last week, and he had a little bow tie on, but we just took it off, I think, yesterday. But
out of here.
Him always has a little bow tie. You say hi, everybody. Hi.
And if only we had that translation tool, wouldn't we love it?
Oh man, I
want to speak dog like if only I translated everything into dog lingo.
Oh my goodness,
your time with my guy Toby, that's for sure.
Oh goodness,
wouldn't I love to know what they're thinking? Probably just give me some snacks.
Yes. I always laugh. That's always a running joke in my house, because I will stare at my dog and go, oh, he's just so wonderful. Oh, he's just so cute. And then I'll ask my husband, do you ever wonder what Honu's thinking? And my husband will always look at me like, nope.
Oh, I make up language for him, like some of those, my favorite TikTok ones where they do a voiceover. Okay, we're super off the subject now. We got off the subject. Sorry, y'all that are watching.
We know we got a lot of folks who are dog lovers and animal lovers. But Michele, this was so much fun. And I know there's so much more that we can continue to chat about on this specific topic. But friends, if you are either watching us live or catching the replay at a later time, we would love to hear your thoughts and your ideas kind of about this idea of like that strategic translation and why translation alone isn't always the most effective. So this might be, though, an episode that you tag a colleague in the comments and say, you know, I'd love for us to talk about this.
Yeah.
As I do my newcomer workshops, I'm excited. I have a really fun full day in person at the IRC on Friday. So I'm super pumped about that. And as we work through that day, we're going to talk about the idea of establishing a translation protocol to be used for instructional purposes. So that might be something to kind of consider as folks are continuing this conversation. But Michele, thank you so much for hanging out with me tonight. It was lovely to see you and chat with you.
Ditto.
Thanks. All right, friends, have a good evening, and we'll catch you guys next week. Bye, everyone.
Bye.